How many times have you been talking to someone, just a regular, normal conversation, and all of a sudden they just go off on you, and you be like, what in the world just happened here? What did I say? All I said was... And maybe when you said it, it wasn't that big of a deal from your perspective. But from that person's perspective, it was the worst thing you could have ever said. You were probably meeting that person's moon sign. Are the aspects to their moon? They're giving you a reaction, their default reaction to something that's there that you can't see. I hope you guys are following me so far. So the moon sign basically is, and I've seen it described this way, and I thought this was a very poetic way to explain the moon sign. When you know what you mean, but you can't say it, that's your moon sign. The moon is what's going on, is what you know, but the sun can't say it. And this may be doubly so for some people, because some people's sun and moon are not incompatible, quote unquote, compatible signs. For instance, compatible signs might be, like for instance, the water signs. Cancer, Pisces, and Scorpio. Those three are water signs. So if you have someone who has sun in Cancer, they don't necessarily have moon in Cancer, and they don't necessarily have moon in Pisces, which would be more compatible. You might run into a person with sun in Cancer who has moon in Aries. Those are not considered necessarily compatible signs. And so take a minute to think about how they may present themselves, given that. And to put some detail to that, you have a sign like Cancer that's considered to be relatively shy sign. Aries is not a shy sign. So that's a big hint there about how that person might present themselves. So I describe the moon as the mute sorrow, the secret dream. Some things about yourself that the world may not necessarily comprehend. It's the things that about a person, like I said, that you don't necessarily see. Also, the moon is where our past is. It brings our past into our lives through our feelings. So bringing back that example that I gave of having a conversation with someone, making a statement, and the person totally blowing up on you, there may be a past experience that caused that. You may not even have been a part of that experience, but whatever you said made them immediately think of that past experience, and their moon sign may have responded to it. The moon sign, or whatever aspect or relationship their moon has to another planet, and that's the reaction that you received. So we're already starting to see there's a deeper part of our personality, of who we are, how we present ourselves to not just the world in general, to each other in relationships. Sometimes there are people we don't get along with, and we don't know why we don't get along with. When you start looking at the moon sign, you start to somewhat get an idea as to why there are some people you are fast friends with, people that you get along with right away, and people that you probably don't deal with too much. I do want to make a quick note before I move on. With the moon sign, because it moves so quickly, it's better to know your time of birth so that you can be for sure, not just the moon sign, but the degrees for it. Because for sometimes there are some days where the moon stayed in a certain sign the whole day, but it may have had different degrees. But then there are some days where the moon moves from one sign to the other, and if you don't know what time you were born, you may be off about what the sign is. For instance, for me in particular, the day that I was born, the moon moved to a different sign. So initially, before I saw my chart, I thought my moon was one sign. But then once I actually did my chart, I realized that my moon was actually in the sign before it actually moved to the other sign, because I was born really, really early in the morning. And so it helps to know what time you were born. I understand for some of us it's going to be more difficult. So if you can at least kind of have an idea what time of day in terms of what area of day. Was it really early in the morning, like maybe 2-3 o'clock in the morning? Or was it like 9 or 10 o'clock in the morning? Was it after like 2 o'clock in the afternoon, maybe 2 to 4? Or maybe it was really late at night, like at 8-9 o'clock, 11:30 at night, or something like that. So that gives you some idea as well in terms of determining what the degrees for it were.